Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to the latest edition of our entertainment show, where we look at TV series, movies that are currently airing or debuting here in Ireland and the UK this month. And one of our TV series that are up for discussion this week is a musical sort of a TV series with a sort of twist. It's airing on channel Apple TV here in Ireland and the UK at the moment. It's called Schmigadoon. It's about a couple who go on a backpacking trip. They arrive in a sort of a magical town called Schmigadoon, and they're not allowed to leave until they find true love. As the saying goes, that true love mightn't be with themselves, it could be with any person living or residing in the fictional town of Schmigadoon. And I'm delighted to be joined by one of the stars of the TV series at the moment, the one and only Garfield Wilson. He plays the role of Henry the Iceman. And Garfield, first of all, pleasure talking to you today, sir. And Schmigadoon, Broadway meets musical, meets comedy, meets a bit of drama, meets a bit of tension, meets a bit of Valentine's, a bit of love, sort of. It's got a mix of everything that your classical musical would want to. Obviously, without the bit of death, of course. There's no death in this.
Couple close claws. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. This was a project that came down the pipe for me that I was so thrilled to book. It was unlike anything I've ever worked on before. Most of the film and television that I've done, in fact, all the film and television I've done has been either a comedic situation or very dramatic or sci-fi. I have done musicals, but that's been on the stage. That's been on the theater stage. So it's the first time I've worked on a musical in this capacity, and it was just unbelievable, especially because I got to work with some of my heroes, that being Keegan-Michael Key, Cecily Strong, Alan Cummings, and getting to work with Kristen Chenoweth and being directed by Barry Sonnenfeld was just an absolute dream. Those guys are absolutely amazing in what they do, and they're such amazing people too.
Garfield, doing my research on Schmigadoon, you can tell me, stand me corrected if I'm wrong about this, but it's a spin-off on a Broadway play back in the 1940s, as far as I'm aware of, called Brigadoon. In terms of that, so there's a sort of a twist in terms of this was done way back, maybe over nearly 80 years ago, I would suppose, at this stage, and through the early stages of Broadway, when Broadway was a big sort of smash hit. So there's some sort of a challenge to try and look at something and sort of reinvent a sort of a storyline, maybe 80 years sort of a later in terms of Broadway. That's a sort of an interesting sort of a take in terms of a project. And did you hear about that from the start?
I didn't hear about that from the start, but what I did learn from the script and from the musical directors and Cinco Paul and Barry Sonnenfeld and the musical directors as well, and the writers, is that this was going to be a reimagining of what a musical experience is going to be like, and that was blending, relevant real life today, and just taking our reality and transporting it back to a time of, Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and all those classical musicals, Singing in the Rain, and they did it with such grandiose aplomb, just like with the music that they wrote, with the way that it was written, and it having. And I believe that this was something that Cecily Strong has been developing for the last 5 years, and just to put together this all-star cast who were just incredibly talented, I think they just hit it. We hit it right out of the park. I mean, I've been dying to see this. I thought it was going to come out in the spring of this year, but I had to wait a few more months to watch it myself, and I never saw any footage of what we shot on the day, and just. And like every other fan that's watching it on Apple TV, I was watching it for the first time when it first aired on July 16th, and I was blown away by the color scheme, by the storyline, and how they edited it. It was just it's just a lot of fun to watch.
And Garfield, I suppose British Columbia, Vancouver, it wouldn't be necessarily the home of musicals in terms of Broadway. So when you were told that you've landed this part, you're going to British Columbia back in October 2020, roughly in the height really of the COVID sort of pandemic, to shoot a musical in a particularly sci-fi country. That's when we think of British Columbia, we think of Battlestar Galactica, we think of Stargate, the whole sort of sci-fi genre. Not New York Broadway in terms of musicals, where that sort of. So you're sort of wondering how is this going to play out in terms of studio, in terms of scripting, what is a musicals type of play in the height of a COVID pandemic out in the bitter coldness of British Columbia.
You're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the productions in British Columbia have been known to be sci-fi and to be in the CW categories with lots of with action and superheroes and things like that. But at the height of the pandemic in 2020, hats off to our union here in WorkSafe BC. We really had our policies and our protocols down to a fine art by the time we started filming Schmigadoon in I think development in September and getting that going in October of 2020. So we had our red zones, which are for the actors. We had our yellow zones and our green zones, and actors and everyone on the crew got tested 3 times a week. And the studio that we used as the lot to build these unbelievable sets, I've never seen sets like this before, were extraordinary. And to top it all off, Barry Sonnenfeld, Cinco Paul, and everybody, the producers, everybody that was involved in this production really created a warm, safe, and really connective environment so that there was a lot of chemistry between the actors on set. They went above and beyond to create a safe environment. And so that chemistry that you see on the screen was not lost, and I tip my hat to them because I felt very, very safe as an actor, because there was a lot of trepidation going back to work in August and July of last year. And they just created a wonderful, wonderful work environment. And it was a joy to be on that set for about a month and a half.
You mentioned a month and a half, Garfield, and I suppose I take it you're based in the United States, maybe east or west sort of coast. So we need to sort of landed that gig in terms of coming out to British Columbia, in terms of the sort of quarantining in between sort of takes and sort of shoots as sort of well in sort of events. I imagine in shooting a musical, in terms of shooting scenes, are you talking roughly 5-6 hour days in terms of production?
Well, to correct you, I'm actually based in Canada. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. But to answer your question, before COVID, it wasn't uncommon to be on set. Like, I was very, very busy for the last 3 to 5 years on productions, on a variety of productions. And sometimes you would work on productions going over like 12 or 16 hours. Right. And so because of the precautions that they took, again, we got tested 3 times a week. Face shields, masks were mandatory for a crew. And then when cast members had to take their masks off or their shields off, there was very limited crew on set to keep the number of people down in one area. But on top of that, and if you overwork yourself or you get tired or fatigued, you're more susceptible to getting sick. So our work days on set were no more than 8, maximum 10 hours. I worked on a number of productions where I was finishing up a Nickelodeon production, The Astronauts, which was produced by Imagine Entertainment, Ron Howard. Yeah. And when we went back to production to finish up the 10 episodes that we needed to finish, there were multiple days in a row, but there was a hard wrap at 10 hours. Whereas before, sometimes you would work to 16, sometimes 17 hours, and and then the turnaround to come back the next day is only 8 hours. So you're just, after a number of days, you start to get really, really tired, and some people would get sick. So they really wanted to make sure that everybody was getting their 10, 12, 10 hours of sleep, that they were only working maximum 10 hours a day, and that we weren't working multiple days in a row. So I think that, again, that's attributed to the scheduling and the production and WorkSafe BC, and just trying to keep the integrity of production and keep everybody as safe as possible, so we can have a healthy run, and that our production wouldn't be shut down because somebody got sick. And that was a definite fear for everyone, because during that production we had notifications that other productions around the world and NBC had shut down because somebody did get sick, and thank God that we never experienced that. And we got lucky, and then we did have good policies and procedures. And ultimately, I mean, this global pandemic hits you in places where you least expect it, and you can take all the precautions in the world, and somebody close to you could be sick, and you have to deal with that. And fortunately for us, we never had that problem in this production.
And I suppose, Garfield, as in terms of Schmigadoon, in terms of being musical sort of comedy, I know you've done productions in terms of theatre, in terms of Broadway in the past, and I know that feeding off a crowd, feeding off that energy in terms of adrenaline. I'm just wondering, when you're shooting that away in closed sort of lots and sort of closed sort of studios, in terms of, do you need a sort of fellow actor support or fellow cast support that probably aren't down that take, aren't on that scene, but maybe are watching on, maybe listening and giving that sort of feedback, that you can sort of look out and sort of feed off that sort of energy? Because I imagine in terms of musical, in terms of that sort of motivation or reaction, you need to feel off that sort of vibe, I suppose. Empty sort of lots or empty sort of studios where you're just seeing out the blank spaces, in terms of getting that sort of adrenaline going, it can be a hard thing, I can imagine.
Well, it can be. I mean, in terms of previous productions that I've been on, I mean, it can be quite difficult to get that energy when you're playing to a green screen. Do you know what I mean? When you're trying to imagine that you're fighting something that is 10 feet tall, or that things are coming at you, or that you're dodging something, and it's all going to be put together in post-production. But the wonderful thing about Schmigadoon is that the energy that is needed for this show and that is needed for this production is about the music, and is it about the actors that you're working with. And we had such a talented cast and crew and the music was so good. And the dancers, the core dancers, and again, I can't say enough about the main stars, Cecily Strong, Keegan-Michael Key, Kristen Chenoweth, Dove Cameron, the list goes on and on and on. They just brought their A game every single take, every single day. And they're so much fun to work with that I was just like, I was energized just being in their presence. I mean, and to top it all off, to be able to work, when you've been in lockdown and been in quarantine for such a long time, and to be back out into the living and to be interacting with people again was also energizing. So that added a multitude of levels, and it wasn't lacking in energy and in the chemistry on that set. I can tell you that.
I suppose, Garfield, we're probably 10 minutes into the interview now at this stage, probably 50, and I haven't really asked you about your character yet, Henry the Iceman. Can you tell us a bit about Henry the Iceman, and what's his sort of role in Schmigadoon? What type of character is Henry?
The Iceman is akin to like a lot of those stories back in the 1940s and 50s, where African Americans were hardworking and they didn't have a lot of money, and they looked like they're just two-dimensional, just there to add a bit of comedy, or to to do some sort of work in the town, and that's what Henry the Iceman is. He's actually carrying the ice for the town. It's sort of a ridiculous job, but that's a job that he's proud of. But the one thing that is really wonderful about Schmigadoon, and you have to watch it till the very, very end of the series, is that nobody is who they seem. There's way more layers to those characters than they seem when they're first introduced, and that's the magic of it. And I think the wonderful thing about the story is that Cecily Strong's character and Keegan-Michael Key's character come to the town and are having relationship problems, and they're trying to self-discover themselves, and so the town changes them, but in turn they change the town and change the town's people, and it's a wonderful magical experience that comes to fruition at the end of the story.
I saw the trailer for it as well, Garfield, and you get the sense it's almost like 21 dates in terms of they just arrive in the town, and it's just they just part their ways, and whoever they meet on one side, in terms of whoever Cecily Strong, Melissa character meets, go off in a sort of a dating experience for a week, in terms of keep off in a dating experience for a week, and then come back and report their sort of findings as such.
Yeah, it's like looking for love in all the wrong places, and it's right in front of you the whole time. I think that's the moral of the story. And also, again, one of those things is that you have to look inside yourself before you find true love. Self-discovery reaps the benefits of true love.
And I suppose Garfield, lastly, in terms of Schmigadoon, we know that there were 6 episodes in season sort of 1. I suppose in terms of, I imagine it's sort of a standalone sort of project in terms of a musical, in terms of what there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, dare I say?
I would say so, only I don't know what's in the toolbox for the writers and creators. I mean, it's such an ambitious show, and it checks off all the boxes. So and it's been well received. I'm having a lot of fun watching it. I had so much fun being a part of it that I wouldn't rule out another season of Schmigadoon, whatever that may be.
And I suppose, Garfield, lastly, I suppose it's a busy time for you. I know you're on 2 sort of highly confidential sort of projects at the moment that you can't detail as such. But in terms of the acting sort of scene, in terms of the whole TV, in terms of going for pilots, in terms of auditioning, tapes, casting sort of role, is everything really back to normal? Do you sort of find that you're back now to sort of pre-2019 sort of, in terms of the whole sort of industry going back? Is there an awful lot of scripts coming your way again? Is the industry sort of coming out of it, learning sort of tough lessons, but in a better place going forward?
I would say so. I think that the industry is thriving, and that a lot of shows got put back by a number of years. And I know that there were a lot of high-profile movies that were going to be released in 2020 that got pushed back to 2022, just to wait to see if theaters were going to be open again. And in terms of the projects that I'm reading for, they're so exciting, so exciting. I just wrapped on a feature film that lasted for about 4 months. That was the biggest project I've ever done. And I'm currently shooting another movie series for a streaming network that wraps at the end of September. So to answer your question, projects are coming fast and furious. The writers have been locked down in quarantine, in COVID lockdown, and they've been working very hard and wanted to be ready coming out of the gates. And I've seen nothing but exciting projects coming out from like HBO to Amazon Prime to Netflix and abroad, all the networks. It's been an exciting time. The one thing that is different now that I think is amazing is that we're no longer going into casting directors' offices to audition. And so that opens up the playing field for more projects that we can audition for, because now we're doing self-tapes in our homes and then sending them out all across the world, which is amazing. It's a huge benefit for me, which is one of the reasons why I landed these 2 projects that I've just been wrapping up.
And Garfield, lastly for you, I know it's a busy time and we're going to see an awful lot more of you in 2022 in terms of more projects coming across on our TV screens airing in Ireland and the UK. But turning back to Schmigadoon, we're on to our final few episodes here in Ireland in terms of season 1. You might enlighten all our listeners for the final 30 seconds why they should tune in if they're halfway through Schmigadoon, and without giving it away, what's in store for them to try and sell out the sort of promotion of Schmigadoon to all the fans, or maybe newcomers that would be listening to this interview for the first time and maybe wanting to find out a bit more in terms of Schmigadoon.
Well, if you're on the fence of Schmigadoon, if you haven't been introduced to it yet, tune into Apple TV, because it's unlike anything you've ever seen before on television in terms of blending musical comedies together. Lorne Michaels and all the producers and creators put together a fantastic show. The last 3 episodes of Schmigadoon really come to a climax. There's some amazing numbers, including dance and song, and also the wonderful, wonderful story of Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key's characters, who hopefully will find true love, but you'll have to watch to see.
On that note, Garfield Wilson, a pleasure talking to you this evening on the airways. Thanks for joining us in terms of promoting Schmigadoon. Remember, Garfield plays the role of Henry the Iceman in Schmigadoon. No doubt a musical comedy that has left its mark, and it's a light in terms of a shining light in terms of what has been a year or last 2 years full of darkness in the world. Garfield, pleasure talking to you. We wish you all the best for your future endeavours, and hopefully, please God, we'll speak to you sometime again in the near future. Take care, Garfield Wilson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Take care.
Take care.